everybody. I would like to give my response to the verdict against KP George. You know, KP George has been the worst county judge, possibly the worst county official in the history of Fort Bend County. His actions have been a detriment to the county. He's violated the rights to the citizens of the counties for some time, and he's really maligned the people of Fort Bend. His entire premise for the better part of his career was that the people of Fort Bend County are racist, and therefore we need KP George to defend the minority populations from the racists in Fort Bend County. That's been his message. And from that message, what he's done is he's initiated the Wuhan flu tyranny on the people of Fort Bend, where he was shutting down businesses with the swipe of a pen, where he was initiating mask mandates in the schools. He actually went into Fort Bend independent school districts and got a mask mandate implemented when he has no jurisdiction over the schools. He had all of our county offices with what looked like the equivalent of a Chinese facial recognition software implemented. He put the mask mandates in our county offices. Everything in his presence was totalitarian and not good. He then initiated the vaccine drive. These vaccines, while the VAERS database, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, VAERS database, was exploding with vax injuries, he's pushing the vax on people. Then he implements the door-knocking surveillance campaign where county officials come to your door and check your vaccination status. All of that stuff is bad. And if, in my opinion, if there's anything that he should be tried on, it should be Nuremberg trials for his vaccines, for what he did with the vaccines. It should be the fact that he shut down all of these local mom and pop businesses and put them out of business while he kept the big box retailers going. That's what he should go down for, but that's not what we're getting. What we're getting is some BS judgment, because Brian Middleton was his partner in crime during the entire totalitarian spree in Fort Bend County. Brian Middleton, the DA. And some sort of love spat happened between these two guys, and now they're at each other's throats. And Brian Middleton is throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at him, because Brian Middleton is flexing his muscles. Okay, Brian Middleton is a power-hungry DA. He's a Soros DA, and he is the true criminal in Fort Bend County. Okay? And what he got KP George on, as I understand it, is an overcharge of $78. And from this bogus idea, they do fraudulent money laundering, right? $78, something that should be dismissed, something that's minuscule. No, he should not go down for that, in my opinion. He should go down for all the stuff he did with Brian Middleton. Remember, Brian Middleton led the campaign to basically commandeer elections with his bogus fraud county election task force, where Brian Middleton contrived the idea that racism was the new agenda in Fort Bend County, and that minority voters were being intimidated at the polling sites. And so Brian Middleton had to put his thugs at the county polling locations to overpower poll election watchers. That was the whole scam that Brian Middleton wanted to get a hold of county elections. That was scam number one, which the citizenry rised up, and he had to shut that scam down. And he moved to scam number two, where now he's essentially rendering the justice system inept. He's rendering it impotent through a number of under-the-radar mechanisms and tactics. You can watch my interview with Sean McDonald, where Sean McDonald explains them all in great detail. And essentially, it's something that's sort of like less obvious than bail reform that's happening in Harris County, because he can't show his cards to that extent. But essentially, he's doing the same thing with a number of tactics that are under the radar. And it's lawlessness in Fort Bend. I want everyone to remember what Adam Schiff said. Adam Schiff said that it was a decade over a decade ago, where when criminals would come into Fort Bend County, and the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Department would be waiting there with shotguns to break them down. Okay, that's what happened to the criminal element in Fort Bend County a decade plus ago. The criminals they come into Fort Bend and they'd be begging to be put back in Harris County, right? That doesn't happen anymore. They get a free ride in Fort Bend County. Go watch the Sean McDonald interview that we did on the Chris Heasley Show. Brian Middleton is the problem in Fort Bend County, and what he's doing right now is flexing his muscles on KP George. Takes all of the eyes off of Brian Middleton and what he's doing, according to the Soros agenda. The Soros agenda in Fort Bend County, the Hungarian financier that put almost $1 billion into Brian Middleton's campaign, and the agenda is being laid while you go after KP George, whose political career was done, it was done 24 months ago, right? Whenever he had to switch parties and all that nonsense. He is no longer a threat to Fort Bend County. Brian Middleton is doing incredibly intelligent political plays by taking out KP George, putting the spotlight on their one-time hero, their franchise player, their star quarterback, and now he's a dead dog, right? It is political brilliance by Brian Middleton. Brian Middleton is the threat in Fort Bend County. Let's not pretend like he's the hero. If KP George was going to go down, it should have been for the right things, for all the violations of rights he did during the Wuhan flu on the people of Fort Bend. Guys, tune into the Chris Heasley Show. All the answers are happening in Fort Bend County on the Chris Heasley Show. Fort Bend is the most pivotal county in the state of Texas. Have a great day.